This episode is sponsored by DistroKid, and I'll have more about them at the end of the episode. I want you to look at these two images and be honest with yourself. What excites you? What gives you the most inspiration? For some creators, the blank canvas represents limitless potential and the freedom to experiment without expectation. But many artists with any experience of production will lean toward the latter. Now, why is that? It's the foresight to know just how many choices lie ahead. Crafting a groove, selecting plugins, choosing a chord progression, layering instruments, and the daunting question of whether there's even enough fuel in the tank to complete a song today. Join me as we delve into this episode and rid our fear of the blank canvas. Now, this is an extension to last week's episode, which was centered on learning. This one is the second in the series, focused more on experimentation. So check it out if you haven't already. An artistic friend of mine underlined the importance of capturing a mood prior to painting your subject. She called it washing the canvas, the act of rubbing, brushing, or throwing paint onto the page to obscure the infinite white and help suggest what will form the narrative. I like to do something similar with my page, in which we create a drone or a mood out of a collection of sounds we've fused together. I'm gonna pitch that right down. Maybe reverse it. Let's go with the bowed string next. And maybe a piano sequence. We'll reverse that as well. I don't overthink these choices. Generally, it's whatever my eye or my ear gravitates towards first. So fantastic, we've got one technique in the bag, but at this point, let me introduce you to Jack Whitten, a renowned abstract painter, famous for the Black Monolith, his 9/11 piece, and so much more. He coined the technique of slab paintings, where you press acrylic onto canvas, and as that layer dries, you press on another layer, so on and so forth. It's a terrific way of gaining texture as you build your piece. So how can we take this influence and apply it musically? If we take white noise, for instance, we can give it more or less texture through a vocoder. Applying it to some kind of shaper or tremolo is where we start to get some rhythm. We can do the same to another type of texture as well. So up the top here, I have these like chimes. And if I pull that complexity down to beats and set it to the forward transient mode and pull this back from 100, you start to hear these different kind of rhythms taking place. And what I'm going to do is just chop that first quarter note off and see what we have in terms of rhythm. Okay, so that's something you can use in amongst the kick, snare, and hi-hat. Underneath, I've got this other tonal ambient loop. So what I'm going to do is use that same trick, pull back those transients to preserve some kind of rhythm. And if I press Command J, I'll be able to see those little rhythms. And what I can do is better warp this in place as well. Maybe it works more with the chimes. Cool. So underneath I have my kilobyte kit. It's available at the Patreon. And now I can set a rhythm to this, which I wouldn't usually think of. The sheet of sound technique was developed by John Coltrane when he was playing with Thelonious Monk, and it kind of blurs the lines between one note beginning and another coming to an end. And it's often played as like a glissando in like septuplets. With the use of modern technology, we can kind of combine that sheet of sound idea as well. We could create arpeggios that will play much quicker than they're intended to be heard. And if we drench them in an artificial reverb and use something like a granulator, we can kind of just pull out the color that we want for the bass layer of the sound of our canvas. And now we can play over the top of it. Now remember, this is all in the act of experimentation, having us try out new approaches to composition, and unlike acrylic on canvas, these sounds that you use to wash the page, they don't have to be embedded into the material. Once you start flowing with your composition, you can decide whether they remain there or to just remove it completely. I gave a free plugin away in last week's episode, which was kind of the thing that kicked off this series. This week, I've made sure that there's a nice texture drone pack there for the members. Check it out if you don't want to create your own. I often use these drone techniques in a lot of my releases, and I get that music out there with the help of DistroKid, today's sponsor. Using the link in the description below, you'll get 7% off your first year. Just hit the link and then ensure you hit that sign up button. Once that's done, uploading your music is pretty much self-explanatory. Just follow the instructions as you move down the page, and in no time, your creations will be on all the major streaming platforms. It's that easy. Guys, thank you so much for swinging by. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the follow-on episode of this video. And I'll see you next time.